of speakers who in a short while. Just allow us time till another 2-3 minutes, and we will be having our panelists also join in. We are bang on time. So let's, if that's okay, while people keep on joining, may I invite Mehul Shah, who is the board member of Indian Staffing Federation and also the chairperson for the IT chapter. Mehul, thank you so much for joining us from US. I know you have not slept the whole night and possibly not for another couple of hours because of the exciting session that we have planned today. Thank you so much for taking out time for this session. We have Kapil Sharma, who joins us from Collabra. He's the Chief Sales Officer. We have also joining with us Rohit Dokania, who's the Director of Finance from Allegis. And we will shortly also have Vijay Shivram join us from Quest Corp. He's the CEO IT Staffing over there. With that, I would leave the floor and possibly request Mehul to start this exciting session and take it forward. Thank you so much, Mehul and everyone.
Thank you, Suchita. Hello, everyone. So your Indian Staffing Federation is back. Like last time, I remember we had an interesting session. We had technology sessions in past. Last time we had the new normal, what verticals are working, what skills to focus on. And at that time, a lot of requests had come in terms of how do we do it. And, I've been talking to various members, the challenges, they want to know the way forward, how to really go about it. So the paradigm shift that has happened in our industry of late, you call it during the pandemic or you call it post-pandemic, the shift that has happened in our industry, supply demand problems that have just emerged, like it's a problem for everybody, and the overall larger issue that we all are staring as IT staffing industry. I think this is an appropriate session where we discuss about what could be possible ways, because in today's world, when the challenges are plenty, the shifts have changed, the entire landscape is changing. I think gone are the days of those conventional staffing. I'm not saying gone are the days, I take it back, but how far we will get in those conventional staffing, which is a bill rate and a pay rate, a candidate and a client, how far are we going to go? Isn't it imperative to really come up with some innovative models? One, to solve the problem of the industry right now, to solve our business problems. And second is to show some sort of a differentiator in this competitive environment that we all are in. So today we will discuss about the various models, the models that are prevailing out there, the models that are popular, getting more popular, the models that clients may be expecting IT staffing companies like all of us to adapt to and to offer to them. I think we will discuss about that, and to all my members, all the salespeople of various companies who have joined, who are joining, make some notes, because this will, I hope that this session today will leave you with some food for thought in terms of when you go back, what kind of discussions you want to have on, and what kind of models you want to really bring and come up with for your companies on the drawing board. So make some notes, try to understand what they are talking, because I think due to shortage of time, we may or may not be really be able to articulate so much, but we got very eminent speakers. They are industry leaders and they have great experience in offering these kind of solutions to their clients. So make notes, ask those questions if you have for any of these three great speakers that we have. The third one is just joining very soon. And enjoy the session. Try to understand and try to see what difference can we make to the industry, to the clients, and how can we help our own companies through these models. So the first speaker I would like to invite is Kapil Sharma, Chief Growth Officer from Collabra, and he is going to talk about hire, train, and deploy, which is one of the popular models these days that can solve the supply demand problem. Because when the talent is not available, probably you may have to manufacture this talent to meet the demands that we have. So please welcome Kapil Sharma from Collabra. Kapil, over to you, my friend.
Thank you so very much, Mehul. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks, ISF, for inviting me, and I think my fellow colleagues are going to talk about it. I think it's a very important point, but at the same time, I had a request on a lighter note. Because it's a Friday evening in India, it's important that we try and maintain the time because a lot of people would have had a long weekend. So I'll try and curtail and restrict it. But more than happy to take any questions over and beyond if we are running out of time. And more than happy to share a global overview about it. So I've prepared a small presentation about what this hire, train, and deploy means to us, and where are we when when it comes to a talent supply situation. Just bear with me for 20 seconds while I just put my presentation on. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you are able to see my screen. Mehul, Rohit, you guys are perfect. So I have not put a lot of content in it. I just wanted to explain you what it means. Where are we at this point in time in terms of talent supply situation? How is it that the world is looking at us as being the biggest source of providing the IT talent, digitized talent to the world, and what lies ahead of us, right? There are challenges as well, but I think collectively, if we all get together, I think we can successfully make this model successful. I think this has been prevalent into the marketplace. It's not a new model. People have been calling T&D, train and deploy. People have been calling HTD&D. People have been calling it hire, train, and deploy, of course. In variety, I mean, they've got different nomenclature to it. But if you go back about 20 years as well, there were organizations who were providing just pure play classroom trainings that were responsible for upskilling the talent, right? And to meet with the talent demand situation. So today the world is staring at all of us to understand where the shift is, right? The transformation has really gone multifolds. And this is where I just thought to put a very high level overview of the skill gap that we see, right? The amount of business that we are seeing today, it is expected to get 3 times more by 2025. And I can challenge this could potentially be 5 times in the time to come, right? Look at the deficit part of it, right? There will be more than 100 million people who would be finding it, who would have to find a different job because they potentially become obsolete. Automation is kicking in, a lot of transformation is driving it. So post-pandemic, post-COVID, there will be potentially these many people getting obsolete, out of job. There will be about a 75% people who will have that skill gap in India if we do not change ourselves. This is based on the current trajectory, based on how India is, having their own upskilling plans, right from the universities to colleges to people like us who have to take the responsibility to really shrink this gap, because this is a huge gap, 75% that I look at, right? The current statistics is, of course, there is a shortage of about 4 million people in the cybersecurity space. There are a lot of jobs in other digital arena, if I had to talk about data, cloud, analytics. So overall, I think the skill gap is there, and we all understand this very well, right? We cannot just go from the pure play job portal recruiting or sourcing strategy, because the customers have their charter laid out when it comes to their digital plan, right? And this pandemic, I know, while it has really taken away a lot of good things from us, but one thing this pandemic has certainly offered is, you know, the acceleration and the boost to the digitization. So companies that had plans to digitize themselves in 2025 are wanting to rapidly do it in a 1 year. So imagine that's the kind of pace. What India is at this point in time. We absolutely have a plethora of people. All we need to do is, channelize them in the right direction. 10 million or so in a year are either not doing the right job or they are potentially getting unemployed. So these are the kind of things that I think have to get answered. And one of the, I won't say innovative way, but one of the ways of doing it is going to be this concept of hire, train, and deploy, right? So I'll move to the next one. Why do we need this hire, train, and deploy, right? Like I said, to really cement the gap of what is available in the market and what is required by the market. So there is a gap. How do you try and cement this? That's why this hire, train, and deploy is needed. We need it from, of course, from a contingency planning perspective, because you understand, we got to prepare the workforce for future. Like I said, companies are doing their competency framework mapping. Now, when they do this competency framework mapping, it is very important that they understand what's there inside their organization and what needs to be infused into the organizations. From that perspective, I think this contingency is going to get created through this model. Of course, because largely the population that's going to get into this are going to be the bunch of freshers who are going to displace or infuse a new energy into them. So this will certainly also control a lot of attrition related issues that most of the organizations are going through for their digital talent. And that's where I think it is basically an initiative, a model to bridge this gap up, right? So the next slide that I have talks about what and how aspect of it, right? So what is hire, train, and deploy, right? In a very loosely put term, if I had to explain, we get the demands from the client, right? We try and train the people and we try and deploy. That's very loosely put. But let me try and explain the how element of it very, very, closely, because this is where I think we all will have to understand. And guys, if I were to tell you that even if we all collectively decide the potential that we have, and you've seen it in my previous slides, that there is such a high potential for all of us to take that appetite and pie out of it. So from the time of conceptualizing it, I think where I'm coming from is we as the sales guy, I need to understand that what is it that my customer is looking at, at what level is their digital journey at this point in time, what is their adaptability towards something which is going to be more innovative in terms of accelerated learning experience that they are looking at. So if you try and assess and understand your customer needs and want, and if you try to partner with them in terms of meeting this kind of a gap, only then can this model be successful. Like what Mehul said, I think it's very important because most of the people try and look for those talent on demand. Hey, I need 5 requirements. I've got 5 positions for DevOps, and I need these people to be, deployed. Well, but there are not as many DevOps people available. So that's where you conceptualize with the client. That's where you start working with them as a partner to map the competency of the internal talent. If there is enough competency, then you talk about the training needs. If there isn't enough, competency within the organization, which I believe is the case across the world, is where you try and infuse it through this hire, train, and deploy. So that is where I think you conceptualize it very well. You try and partner with them extremely tight. And this is where I mentioned the vendor part. It's basically the engine that will really transform the entire workforce of future, right? So from that standpoint, Once the customer has a handshake done with you, you talk about the training course curriculum, the content management, the batch identification, sourcing of the right profiles, screening of those profiles, training exhaustively throughout, right? Because these are going to be college freshers. So it's just not the technical training, but also the softer aspect of it. Because the moment they are done with training, they are on the floor. So they are expected to have some bit of corporate exposure as well. So the softer aspect of it as well. And I think that is how a partner plays a role to really infuse the right talent. And of course, post training, equally important is the the relationship and the partnership between the client and the partner, where we talk about deployment of resources and effectiveness of the training. There may be some lapses, there may be some gaps, but if you tighten it together, there could be some on-job trainings that you can provide to the to your client and to the resources to really be more effective on the floor. So this is where the how part typically comes into the play. What is critical at this point in time is to have a strong digital infrastructure to really try and make this hire, train, and deploy successful. What I mean by digital infrastructure is your the way the interface through which you are going to provide this training, right? Because gone are the days where people want to go to the classrooms to really get themselves upskilled and all. So this is where I think the digital infrastructure plays a very pivotal role in making this successful, right? Moving on to the next one, I've tried to put some skills in the digital side of it, where the top demands have been across the world, and this includes India as well. These are from data and analytics, these are from platform, these are from cloud, these are from application side of it. So guys, I think two things that I want to bring it to your notice is, one is why, while you try and train the freshers and provide them to build some center of excellence that they may have, but at the same time, when you need some more industry experienced people, you try and cross skill or upskill some people who may be more relevant. For example, a Java resource can be upskilled to a front end developer. A Java resource can be also upskilled to be upskilled for a cloud AWS developer. Similarly, a .NET guy, because .NET is a Microsoft technology, will go very well with with the Azure. So I think these are the kind of things that we will have to potentially try and understand while we talk to the customer to bridge this gap up. So I would certainly say an element of strong technical understanding. You don't need to really do coding for that, but you need to understand that the digital stack. If we understand the digital stacks at a very broad level, I think we will be able to get into a consultative mode of making them understand on how we could upskill if they are looking at a L2 level or a L3 level or a higher level. So this is where I feel that all of us and those who are aspiring to really get into this kind of a model will have to really get deeper into technology, because only then can you talk to the business and technology leaders and try and make them understand on how this model will make more difference, right? So the next one is the critical success factors, right? I think there are basically there are broadly three critical success factors if I have to talk about it, right? One is from pre-hiring and hiring phase, second one is training, and the third one is deployment. While I covered it in my previous slides, I think here, what I want to talk more about is at a transactional level. It is very important that when you're selling this to your customer, to your potential customer, you get a complete buy-in from your client. And this is across all the business units, right? From the procurement to talent acquisition, to your L&D team, to your business leaders, to your technology leaders, to the CIOs. Because if any of this link is not buying into it, you might just not get the desired results. So it's very important that you take this concept to a client and you explain it to the entire organization that is going to touch the talent, right? And then you define the objectives for alignment. And that is the time you decide on how and what needs to be done in terms of the content, on what moderation needs to be done on the content, on what customization needs to be done on the content, on what kind of trainer do they need, and what kind of soft skill are required for that. Most importantly, out of this is going to be a periodic assessment, because I think that's where assessment of the skill and the will issue is very, very important, that we need to always do while we are trying to explain this concept to them, right? From the training perspective, again, you need to be very, very confident on the qualification of a trainer. You know, most of them would boast about there, but it's very important that you do check their length and breadth of technological understanding that they have. How do they impart that kind of a training? Basically developing high-tech learning platform for interactive training as well. You've got to get into the hands-on training aspect of it, get into the governance aspect, because governance is going to be very critical. If you do not govern the training, because these trainings spread across anywhere between 8 weeks to 16 weeks, depending on the technology, depending on the batch, depending on the client requirements, right? So from that standpoint, it's very important that you put a periodic governance and a handshake between the resource, yourself, and the customer, right? That is going to help you to make this model successful. Last but not the least, I think this is where most of the people, based on my experience, they potentially make a error or mistake is deployment. Post training, when the deployment happens, it's very important that you try and do a proper performance management. You try and stay connected with the resource. You try and stay connected with the client. You try and stay connected with their immediate managers to understand if there are any on-job training requirements, if there is anything else that is required to make this model successful. So guys, I think it's a complete paradigm shift from that aspect, because what we typically are used to in our staffing area or talent on demand kind of a business is that you get a requirement, you source a candidate, you deploy the candidate, you provide a little bit of resource management and a flavor of employee relation, and you're done. But this kind of encapsulates the overall program. So I think you will all have to mentally prepare yourself to go through this entire concept, understand the concepts, make the customer understand that, build your own capabilities for training as well, and then post deployment, which is equally critical, right? So these are the critical success factors that I felt are going to be critical for this model. Of course, I spoke about the effectiveness. It's largely the surveys. So we got to conduct the post-training surveys to really assess how the candidate felt about the training. Did they really understand the technical part? How did they feel about the trainer? Was the trainer able to make them understand? So these surveys could be open-ended, could be close-ended, but surveys are very, very important for yourself to understand and assess and improve. At the same time, I think client feedback is going to be a key for checking the effectiveness of your evaluation of the training that is given. So it's both way. And that's where I said that we will have to prepare ourselves, wear a hat of a complete different program. Yes, it may be the case where we are talking about advancement and progression from the typical staff augmentation services that we are used to. But then I think this is the need of an hour. The buying behavior will also potentially change down the line. The buyers will also slowly adapt and adopt to this new model. And I believe, based on the global exposure and based on my global customers that I'm dealing with, in a lot of other geographies, they've already started implementing it, you know. So guys, that is about it. I thought I'll quickly encapsulate and put this together for all of you. Before I take up any questions or I pass on to the next speaker, I want you guys to just look at this on what is lying in front of us, you know, by 2025. And I think this is enough food for thought for us to understand on where the business is going, on where the demands are, and where the gaps are. You may have seen this before, but I think this requires a lot of introspection for the entire fraternity to really pick your own course sweet spot, to start developing some of the expertise in this area, and then start cultivating your talent and the strategy accordingly. right? I'll take a pause there. I'll leave this slide for you guys to review. This is pretty much self-explanatory, but if you've got any questions, more than happy to take it. All right, Mehul, over to you.
Thank you. I think we will take all the questions once the session is over. That was wonderful. In a nutshell, what Kapil is trying to say is, when there is non-availability of skills, or when the right skill sets are not available for the client. For example, you talk about a Pega developers, or you talk about a customized Salesforce solutions. Now, these skills are not going to be available and not going to be fitting to the customer. But what we can do is we can hire some of the junior level people. We can train them, after understanding the client expectations, after getting those resources also checked by the clients, that these are your initial resources. This is how the end product is going to come out. So if we can do that, and then obviously once the training is done, again, take those reviews and customer satisfaction, that this could be one of the models apart from the conventional regular contract staffing that we used to do, where I said that typically in our, layman's language, a bill rate, a pay rate, a candidate, a client. I think time to move towards, something more innovative, something which can solve a problem from the client side and also can help the IT staffing companies like all of us. So thank you, Kapil.
One last thing, Mehul, I want to just add there is that the world is looking at India at this point in time. And there could be two things that could happen if we don't adopt to something like this. There are other countries who are building the capabilities by themselves. So they are faster in the race. The advantage that India has got is the amount of talent, amount of people that we can manufacture in a layman term, and we can prepare them for a future workforce. So if we do not take this, we are certainly lagging to a lot of other countries who are constantly developing, because it's a reset kind of a button when we are getting into the era of digitization, and all of them have to start from scratch. So from that standpoint, guys, I think it's a time for you guys to really realign and re-strategize your overall business model.
Sure. So thank you, Kapil. Now let's move on to the next solution, the next different model that we can offer, which is, when we go and tell the client that, let me try and solve your problem, not by just giving you candidates who may be a part of the entire team, but there could be 3 from company A, 3 from company B, 5 from company C. Instead of that, let me just try to customize a solution that can just fit and solve your problem. So to talk about managed services as one of the models, please allow me to welcome Rohit Dokania from Elegis. Rohit, over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Mehul. First of all, I would like to thank you, Vishnu and ISF, for giving an opportunity for me to represent Tech Systems, Aston Carter, and others in Elegis Group today to speak about changing environment and the need to adopt to new models to serve the customer. Also, a big thank you to Kapil to share his thoughts on what the market is looking like and how quickly we need to adapt to a changing environment. So I'll just take 2 minutes to put on my screen. Is it visible? Yep. Yeah. Yep. So just start off, I think, just to give a precursor, I think Kapil has already covered the kind of market we are in, and I will not go to that point. But when we talk about any new service offering, always we have this thing in mind that there will be a silver bullet at the end. This is something which I can take out tomorrow and go into the market and sell. So I just want to give a precursor that at the end of this 4 sliders, which I'm going to share, there will not be a silver bullet. I think a lot of hard work still need to be done. A lot of empathy is required to understand the market, to serve the customer, and some of our principles and the service offering, which I'm going to talk about, has the candidate interest and the hiring manager, the client's interest in the heart. So on basis that, I'll start off my presentation. Like I said, some of the principles of around the candidate and the client, the hiring manager's interest is our principle for any service offering. But being a finance guy, I think any core to the business is always profits. Making profits is always the principal thing for any business. And when we see the IT landscape, I know I'm presenting something which is not apples to oranges, but it talks about the opportunity which is in for us, especially for IT staffing, to upskill, upgrade, the kind of money which is on the table, the kind of value which can be provided to the client. And when I say IT services, you see a 250x kind of earning potential for a single hire you do. It's always debatable. Somebody might say it's 500x, it's not comparable, etc. But a considerable chunk of their business is today time and material, and that has nothing to do with their practice. There's nothing to do with owning a deliverable. That's mostly working on time and material, which is up for grabs if as an IT staffing or as a recruitment or as any other offering can scale up. So I'll start off on this and going ahead. I think the other point which we generally see when we are into a governance call with clients, etc. We have this broader headlines that it's a candidate market, there's a talent shortage, people are holding 3 offers, there's 3x of salary, etc. But if you have to see our offering when it comes to IT staffing, I think if we leave those headlines, there's a lot to be done. So before I get to what can be done, what is this offering about, I think I'll just share I think what conventional IT staffing is going through. It's nothing to take out effort which has been put in, but it's more to see where our hiring managers, where our client interest has not been served fully. So if you typically see any IT staffing, it's very recruitment heavy. There's a lot of skills which goes around to get the right candidate in this kind of competitive market. And then once you onboard, typical tenures are 1 year to 2 years. But the margins which we earn or the kind of revenue we earn is for that entire 2-year period. It's not just for finding that candidate in the market. And at times, once the candidate is onboarded, we tend to move on to the next candidate. And that kind of service offering just remains doing day-to-day jobs about payroll, backfilling, etc., invoicing, etc. Somewhere in this, if I am a client, I would have challenged, okay, I would have given you a one-time recruitment fee and I would have get on a payroll vendor. Why do I need you? Why do I need to pay you a bill rate or any other model? Why do I need to give you so much of more money? And that's an everyday challenges people are facing today. But at the heart of it, if you have to look at it all boils down to what the hiring manager or the client is going through. And I'm using the word hiring manager in particular because when we say client, the client is a summation of hundreds or 200s of hiring managers. When we talk about client, we think about a bank, we think about millions of dollars of spend, etc. But at the heart of the problem is not touched. So if you have to see typically a hiring manager is supposed to own up an IT platform or maintain an IT platform, do something in the digital front, etc. But if you see, if he has to, or he or she has to hire 30, 40 people, his 9 to 6 would get choked only in recruiting, only in maintaining people, thinking about the budget, thinking about renewal, thinking about all the other activities which typically would a service provider should have taken it, a partner should have taken that, and that's the core. That's the core of the service offering which I'm going to talk about. And again I have to reiterate: there's no silver bullet. There's nothing which I'm going to talk about can be taken just like that and taken to the customer, unless and until we have all the problems which an hiring manager is facing, and pick that activity one by one, have it delivered, put it in an SOW, and then look for actual value coming out of it. Yeah. So moving on, I'll move to what managed workforce or managed services offering which I'm talking about. Again, if you see, if I had to broadly see in terms of activities, the hiring manager has to spend time in sourcing, spend time in screening, spend time in the maximum time goes into integration between 5 suppliers and internal employees, doing performance management, doing whatever typically in principle that their principal employer has to do, and spending all those time there. And the last it's about the governance part. That part is the fourth part, which typically gets brushed in the carpet. It goes through, and we have all these governance programs with head of procurement, vendor manager, the business, etc. And again, it goes in a 30,000 feet level. You talk about talent not being in the market, etc. But what a series of hiring managers are going through doesn't get captured. So when I'm talking about managed services or managed workforce, the thing which the client is today looking at and the hiring manager are looking at, picking up those activities, and it depends on client to client, hiring manager to hiring manager, what sort of activity you want to pick up. The best way to the best approach has been always picking up the employee management part, the performance management part. And when I talk about that, typically question comes in the mind, okay, I have a business HR, so he sends out happy birthday mails, etc. We do a goodie, etc. I'm not talking about that. When we talk about performance management, it's about certainty. It's about owning up the deliverable not in terms of the technology, but ensuring that things are productive, people are productive, and there are no surprises to the hiring manager. So typically, if I had to make a statement of work, pitch into the customer, customer might say, and hiring manager might say, I don't need it. That's a response we all see today. But when we say IT staffing, I think again we stop at recruiting. We always think, okay, we have done our job and done away with it, and we'll ensure continuous employment for the employee. If the client requires more talent, we are there to provide, but we don't think about the candidate's interest there, what they are going through that, and often factors like attrition doesn't get counted in our business performance. We don't see an attrition as a loss of business. We see it's an opportunity to backfill. And it all goes back to what kind of parameters we are getting measured on. So typically, if you see IT services industry working in single teams, early teams or late teams kind of attrition percentage, but that can't be said about IT staffing. And again, when we talk about that, we go back to 30,000 feet again. Talent is this, talent is that. There are so much opportunities, etc. But we don't have anything to show that what we have done through the hiring manager, and that's where the managed workforce or managed services, which I'm trying to pitch in here, comes in picture. If you have hiring manager by hiring manager, if you have client by client case studies where you have proven track record on this parameters, I think that's a place to start off with. And then eventually there are other activities on sourcing, screening, etc. When a hiring manager places a trust in you, you would find a lot of places where non-critical activities are transitioned out to a service provider. Again, one might think I'm an account manager, I'm a recruiter, I'm not supposed to do this, I don't have the bandwidth. Yes, that's absolutely right. And anything if you have to do doesn't mean that there has to be an additional investment, get a delivery manager, just put that and just introduce tomorrow, okay, I have a delivery manager, he's going to help you in screening. That doesn't work like that. It would come, and again, I'm saying, from a lot of empathy, from a lot of discovery on the hiring manager's problems. And whatever success we have had, whatever, and I will not say success, it's a great learning process which is going on. We have places where there are employee management aspects, there are screening aspects, there are sourcing aspects. It has all come through a lot of hard work, a lot of empathy, a lot of what you say pushback from the client, that they don't want this, they don't want to see reports. A report is a big collateral which can sit in your statement of work, which is harmless, and which is something over a period of time shows how the service provider or the vendor is interested in you, or the partner is really interested in you. And when we talk about critical talent, again, if your attrition rates are 35-40%, you are again going back to the pool, going to the same job board, searching for the same kind of talent. The opportunity cost of doing or not doing anything, or not doing a backfill, or instead retaining, is too high in the market. So let's say if I, as a recruiter, I do 4 starts in a month, and out of that 2 are backfills, I'm actually losing out to new business which is fresh in the market, which I have to address. That opportunity cost never comes out. That opportunity doesn't come out. And somewhere this service offering, might call it managed services, managed workforce, but it's kind of the basic minimum expected out of you, out of a service provider. If you actually think, if you have to go towards somewhere near to what an IT services time and material vendor or a company is earning. So somewhere, if you ask me again, there's no, what you say, a straight answer, a straight way to do it. The kind of time I had, I thought I'll hit the problem, see what all aspects can be brought in. And again, it can't be done through just investment. It has to be done through learning across a board hiring managers problems. So if you have a customer where you have 50 clients, 50 hiring managers going through a certain set of problem, it is very critical to understand where you are hitting. And typically I've seen, and we have all seen in IT staffing market, we tend to work with all 50 hiring managers, 1 person there, 2 person there, 3 person there. When we have an overall feedback from the client, it is on full ratio, it's on how many drops I add, etc., etc. But I don't have a sponsor when I deliver like that. If I address even 2 hiring managers' problems and convert that and take out certain activities and put it in an SOW, even though I don't get a value or not, I'll have 2 sponsors in that particular account who will back me out and increase my market share or wallet share. Lastly, I think I know there is a question answer. I'll just create 2 minutes, man. Yeah. So just frequently asked questions. Will I get an immediate extra billing? No. Eventually, yes. Will it save my business? Probably yes. If you really into solving the problems of the client, yes. Can I take it? Can I wear a suit and go and make it a big presentation out of it? No, it's not going to work like that. You have to work one satisfied hiring manager at a time. My hiring manager says, I think I covered that. Finally, again, it's not a hack. It's not a raffle which you can just चलो मैं एक नॉन बिलेबल दे देता हूँ 100 में. That's what I learned from it. It's not like that. Again, you have to have a framework and deep understanding of client problems. Thanks.
Thank you, Rohit. So what we understand from what Rohit said in terms of managed services, Rohit, you can take it off the screen. What we understand, what he said from a managed services is when there is these days, there is a talent shortage in the market. Retention is another problem. To really staff a particular project itself is very challenging. At such times, when you go to a client, we can always pitch saying, we can source for you, we can do the employee management, and also we can do the matrix and the governance. It's like we are taking some sort of an accountability and just not saying that we are providing 5 Java developers. We are essentially saying that we are taking some sort of accountability in terms of the matrix, the performance, and the governance. So this could be another model where instead of saying that I'm going to just provide you those resources and that's my staffing business, versus saying that, what, I'm also taking some responsibility of what my 5 Java developers are going to do. I will try to manage that as well. So that's a managed services. It's a different way of pitching. Of course, there is a lot of complexity in that. It's not that easy. Typically what Rohit was talking about when it comes to only employee management or managed workforce or just reporting and governance. Typically in our world, it is called as managed capacity. Managed services is fairly complex proposition. However, that's where the dollars are. That's where the money is. That's where the margins and stickiness to the client, etc. Everything is. We can talk about this. Those who want to reach out in terms of what about managed services, want to know more about it, reach out to any of us, whoever you want to talk to. But this is the next model. Now let's talk about the next model. What could be another model, because we got to be more and more innovative. If we are going to say we are only the staffing company, and then there is no differentiator. Hundreds like us, are going to approach the same particular client, and those kind of pitches, what we used to give when I was, into hardcore sales myself. We used to say, oh, we have got great recruiters, we got a client-centric model. Gone are the days. I don't think clients going to buy that. You got to really come up with some differentiator. To talk about the next one, which is managed service provider, I have with me the industry leader who actually not only sold it, but invented various models as well. Please welcome Vijay Shivram from Quest IT. Vijay, over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Mehul. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. A very good evening to all of you. I'm sure all of you are just waiting to finish my talk and then enjoy the weekend. So I'll try to make it quick. But first and foremost, I think thanks to Kapil and Rohit, I think it was amazing. Models exist, but it's execution at the end of the day that makes, and you guys have done that, proven that, etc. So I'll try to talk through a model which I call it the MSP service, which is known in the market as MSP. I think this is a model that's not new, but as Mehul was saying a little earlier, today it's not about just providing a service, but an integrated format of services. And as all of you grew up playing with Lego toys, or some of you played with Lego toys, today Lego has movies, today Lego has entertainment parks. You build an ecosystem around a particular product or a service. So MSP also formats the same way. You kind of vertically integrate yourself into offering MSP as a service. So I'll just put up my slides, just quickly, just get you on to that. And let me see if, please, Mehul, just let me know if you see my presentation. Is it up? All right, fantastic, great. So now this model per se has been in existence for many, close to a couple of decades now. The developed markets have leveraged this model very well. This came into India maybe a decade odd ago in a very small format, but very interestingly, I remember when we used to do staffing, then we used to see MSPs as a little bit of a gatekeeper, and initially, And we would think, no, we should work directly with the customer. But I think in today's world, it's a reality that you have to accept that organizations are going to go the MSP way. And this comes in different terminologies. You have managed services provider, master services provider, workforce management providers, etc. So it comes in different terminologies from different regions. So just to create a small reason why these MSP programs exist is every organization sees contingent workforces that come with different sizes, different complexities. And in the increased globalized world, the compliances itself have changed. And this basically creates a problem statement for corporates to say, I've got this ton of contingent workers or contract workers. How do I manage them more efficiently? Can I give it to experts to drive in? As the staffing and recruiting businesses were built over the years, that they give it to the experts. Even today, master services programs are given to experts, and it's done pretty much what customers wanted to do. So I'm going to try and take you through in a set of 3 slides. One, the need for an MSP. Why do customers do this? And that will help all of you to identify your strengths and see if this model makes sense to you as such. Second and third slide, I'll talk to you a little bit about the operational process as well as the market sizing to just show you that this is not something which was invented yesterday, right? So what are the general needs, or why does a customer or a company go into a managed services provider or a master services provider? One is, of course, process. Process in its own self. This is, in many words, you would call it as a process outsourcing or procurement outsourcing process as such. In many organizations have multiple platforms in which they operate in. Many organizations have global support that they need. It could be a team in India, it could be a team in UK. So processes change, and to govern processes, MSPs are the best way forward. Having clear transparency and communication. Many of you would have come across situations where program managers and business managers directly incubate vendors or partners. And in many cases, unfortunately, some of them are not very ethical too. There's a relationship that's going. Many a time you would find out that a person left an organization and then started a staffing company or a recruiting company and supported that organization only because he had his network inside. It still continues and it will always continue. I think it's all about trust, but this could turn into issues around transparency and ethical behavior. And MSPs kind of become a barrier because the MSP program leaders basically create a wall to allow only one form of communication channel between the company as well as the vendor or the partner. And that allows you to be a little more clearer and transparent, and therefore everyone can sleep well at night. The third thing, which is usually one of the biggest reasons why organizations move into an MSP format, is to ensure that as an organization, they're safe, they're compliant, they follow the rules of the land. And I think many of the MSP providers ensure that every single challan filed, every single compliance audit is reviewed in detail. Many of you must be working with MSP services in India, and you would normally see them doing compliance audits and risk audits and a lot of due diligence to ensure that you are the right partner for the client organization. So MSP organizations, again, when they launch into new countries, it's best to use MSP firms because you kind of learn the journey of the compliance as well. This is, again, the fourth angle, which is, again, very increasingly becoming a reason for using MSP partners, is to reduce cost. Now, obviously, when you work with a multiple set of vendors, the customer would have previously, before moving into an MSP format, would have had multiple rate arrangements. So MSP programs allow standardization because now you have one gatekeeper to make sure that all agreements go through this one gatekeeper. And therefore you can allow that to have a standardization across vendors. So it allows each partner to prove their mettle or to prove their strength in a very level playing field. So this point of, saying that, oh, he knows him very well, that's why he gets the business. In an MSP format, that is not allowed. It's not possible, right? The fifth one, which is in markets like India, Philippines, where you have a lot of, and mature markets as well, where it's also important to ensure that you maximize the leverage of your partners. You use it to pick the right talent. Today, many of you or many of us today are partnering with the customer, and the customer thinks we're great at infrastructure hiring, or the customer thinks we're great at testing. But they might not realize that we are also strong in digital demands. They might not realize that we are also strong in, let's say, cybersecurity, because they've kind of built a mindset. But an MSP partner explores these things. They kind of discover what kind of strengths you have, and therefore helps build that talent pipeline as such. And when you centralize stuff, when you bring things together, bring everyone into a similar umbrella and build structured gate processes to ensure that everyone is treated the same way, it's easier to also manage technology. So when you start implementing tools, when you want to ensure that the inflow of candidates, the outflow of invoices, the payment is all done through technology, it's easier when you do it through an MSP program. Of course, once technology is there, you have data. And once you have data, obviously you start arriving at insights. You start arriving at performance metrics. You start figuring out which market is best for you. And so the MSP provider starts giving a lot of insight into actually leveraging future hiring decisions or future location decisions as such. And overall, it basically brings strength to the supply chain. We are not replacing the procurement function at a customer's level. Neither are we replacing the vendor program itself. What an MSP provider basically does is basically putting both these two together in a much more standardized format. So this is the premise at how an MSP works. There are different models in MSP. I'll try to touch upon a few of this in the next few slides. But to make it very simple, you're building a standardized program in handling vendor partners for a customer and driving things like cost efficiency, process efficiency, and transparency and compliance. So functionally, you bring this together, you're an MSP provider in itself. Now, like I said, this is not a very new model. It's a model that's been existing for many years. Collabra, Allegis, ourselves, and many other companies actually do this in a big way. It's a significant market size. Needless to say, as you become a format of a gatekeeper or a power owner of sorts between the partner as well as the customer, you kind of also enjoy the invoicing programs that run through it. Therefore, it's always very top heavy. MSP programs are very revenue heavy, and it's a good thing when you want to build capacity. It's not as working capital heavy as staffing may be, IT staffing maybe, because functionally most of the arrangements are back to back. So customer pays the MSP provider and the MSP provider pays the partner. So functionally as an MSP provider, working capital is pretty much arranged, but it's a top line business. You have two types of pricings as such. The MSP pricing can be driven by the amount of spend given to partners. It could be a combination of fee models like percentage markups. It could be a fee per worker. So this revolves pretty much in line with regular staffing businesses. But the funding models, and when I say funding, now who's really, obviously there's going to be a margin for the MSP partner. So in some cases, it is supplier funded. So there is a cut that happens at the supplier's end, which is passed on to the MSP provider. In some cases, it is a client funded, where the customer is taking ownership of that. And in some cases, it's combined. In some cases, it's phased out. So in the first 2 years, it will be client funded. After that, it will move into supplier funded. So the funding options are usually very dependent on the size of the program and how much of legacy partners they have, which kind of ensures that they can take a little bit of a supplier funded model as such. It's a huge market globally. There are very large players in the space. I've not captured the players in the slides today, but I'll be happy to take you through some of the competition. What are the global leaders in the space doing, and how do they work as well? The left part of the slide today is for you to read. I go back to say it's a large market, but what I want you to all focus is on the right slide. You know, why I feel and why I strongly wanted to present this today was to tell you that India is still at the cusp of becoming a large-sized MSP market. We're still very far away from where the developed markets are. But increasingly, and I'm sure many of you, when you work with your clients, especially global firms, you are in some way encountering an MSP provider, right? And therefore, it's very important for you to know that as you progress over the next few years, more and more organizations will start adopting MSP as a service. And therefore, you'll find a mix of companies that provide sourcing, staffing, and companies that also do MSP. There are companies today in the market today that do only MSP as a service. They don't even do sourcing. They don't do staffing. They just act as a neutral player. And I'll talk about that in the next slide as such. So what is the whole and why it's now, this is the reason why it's a little tough to enter this business. It's not an easy business to enter. They all say staffing services is an easy business to enter, but it's a very tough business to grow. There's working capital requirements, there's sourcing requirements, there's capacity requirements, etc. MSP programs also require a lot of angles. So I'm going to touch upon the first gray area on top as such. A good MSP provider, a good master services provider will have all these boxes managed by them. Program management, the entire sourcing to hire to retire program for the customer, would have technology platforms such as VMS. There are platforms like Beeline, Fieldglass, and many tools available in the market that help you manage the entire vendor program, managing the entire contract lifecycle. So in an MSP program, the MSP provider does not necessarily manage the payroll. The MSP program partner will also just manage, so the vendors still continue to manage the contractors. But it's important that their compliances are met, their processes are met, their onboardings are met. So there's a contractor lifecycle management ownership that the MSP provider takes. There's supplier management. If suppliers don't do well, there are performance evaluations driven by the MSP partner, and they choose to either move out or bring in new partners. So when you work with an MSP partner, you're not limiting yourself to only that customer. The MSP partner can actually take you to other customers as well. So in other words, MSP players actually act as sales engines for you. As they sign new contracts, they also take the vendor base with them. And needless to say, I think in markets like India, when you have so much of complexities such as GSTs, LTDs, tax-free zones, etc., the MSP provider manages all this for the customer, and therefore kind of ensures that the entire AP, AR angle is managed end-to-end. As a master vendor, now when you become an MSP player, you can choose to be something called a neutral player, where, like I mentioned, you don't source or you don't provide candidates, you just manage vendors or the partners of the customer. That becomes a neutral player. But if you also are a staffing player yourself, you can become a master vendor. Now, the advantages of master vendor per se is that you will have an ability to source for candidates also. And in some cases, if you negotiate right, you might have a benefit of having the positions reach out to you at least 10, 15 days earlier than the rest of the partner group. You might get it at a smaller price, but functionally you get a benefit of refusal. And therefore you also kind of enjoy engaging different types of partners. So some of the programs that we manage, we have seen partners in tier 1, we have seen partners who are mom and pop shops. It's a range of partners that you learn how to manage them, and of course, being an enabler of hiring itself. I mentioned about technology being a very key integrator. The VMS system in itself is going to be one of the key aspects. Very interestingly, in the MSP world, as an organization, if you're entering into this, you can choose to be technology agnostic. There are tools like Fieldglass, Beeline, and many other tools which the customer can procure on their behalf. So many program management offices or MSP programs are actually, the technology is driven by the customer and you just implement it or you just operationalize it. VMS have ATS or there's a separate ATS system. You run employee engagement platforms because many organizations would require you to engage with the contractors, even though they are not yours, to make sure that they are submitting timesheets on time, they're submitting their full and final settlements and their asset replacements as such. Now, I talked about analytics some time back. As you progress as an MSP partner, you start throwing a lot of advisory services. You start helping the customer because in many words, you're just an extended arm of the customer. You know his demand beforehand. You know the process he has. You are aware of what is the vendor channels they have. So in many words, you're just like the partner, like an RPO in a recruiting business. And therefore you become naturally an advisory capacity. You start talking talent landscapes, you start talking operational improvements and cash improvements as such. So functionally, the technology platform operates over there. And as you progress, you start becoming a little smarter in the way you manage your procurement. So like I said, it is not the intention of replacing the procurement at the customer organization. It is to make sure that the contingent workforce is managed efficiently, managed with a cost sense, and more importantly, getting the talent on time and in the right compliances and such. So that's pretty much from my end. I hope it was useful. Mehul, back to you.
Thank you, Vijay. Phenomenal. This was excellent. I hope everybody understood. In a nutshell, when you say master service provider, it is another model to tell a customer, that we will take care of your processes, your talent management, your transparency and your communication, your compliances, your risk management. You see, your entire supply chain, and all of this can actually solve your problem and can also give you some sort of a cost savings as well. And Vijay explained about vendor neutral programs and things like that. So this could be another model what we can think of. So overall, going back to where we started, industry is going through some of the challenging times in terms of talent availability. Staffing companies, all of us, are no more going to be very effective in our conventional old methods. As and when we progress, we will have to come up with different models. You bring some sort of obviously you bring a lot of efficiency in your digital recruiting and things like that, using the AI tools and using all sort of products. But at the same time, apart from making your organization more productive in terms of your average resource productivity, we'll have to come up with various models, be it a hire, train, deploy, be it a managed capacity, managed services, deliverable based solutions, or be it a managed master service provider, which can just take care of the entire supply chain and the talent management of a particular client, probably can give a cost saving as well. So these are the top models that we can think of, where organized, and just to let you know, guys, these people, all three speakers today, they spoke, and I'm sure they are offering these solutions to their clients. So I don't know how much was their trade secret being revealed here, but I pretty much know, and I'm very confident that they are selling these solutions to their clients. Having said that, more and more staffing companies are now moving towards this, because there has to be a differentiator. Obviously, to run our business more effectively and to win more business, at the same time to solve a problem, because clients have understood, we as staffing companies also have understood, to really, when a client comes and tells you about a particular project, we are not absolutely confident on staffing those projects, because we know either talent may not be available, or we may not have the right onboarding at the right time, or we may have attrition once our people start on projects. So I think I have a few questions already, but in the essence of time, I'm going to keep them with me. I answered a few already while other speakers were talking, during the session. But I think, guys, I encourage all of you to give it a thought. What kind of models? And now, mind you, one interesting question that came to me was, being a small company, and this is for all three of you, this is relevant. Being a small company or a MSME or a small startup, is it even relevant to us to sell a managed services, to sell a hire, train, and deploy, to become a master service provider? I answered in my own way, but we can take that question, because I think that was one of the most relevant questions. Not every member is a large company, and they may still struggle implementing these models. So if any of you want to take that question, and then I got all other questions which I will respond to them, and all of you others, all the other members, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Reach out to any of these panelists as well. But we will park those questions. But this particular question, Vijay, Kapil, Rohit, I wanted somebody to take, because the question again is, being a small company, how can we really sell this? Whether is it even relevant to us or not? Yeah. Anybody who wants to take that question?
I can. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Rohit. Rohit, you can go ahead.
Rohit, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I can. I think the thoughts will not be different. I think, I'm sure. Be it in, I think that's a very fair question. See, ultimately, it's about the client experience. So if you're an MSME, typically we all talk about hotel experience. If you can give a Taj experience and be a smaller restaurant, nobody is going to say no to that. So I think our industry has been very underserved. No industry where you submit 10 resumes and have one select and get away with it. We have lot more to do. So I think size doesn't matter. Client experience at the end of the day is the key.
Thank you. Kapil, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so I think I want to tell this, and this is a very broad level message that I want to give it to all. So at the center, what you've got is the talent. So the one who can source the right talent, whether you are small, smallest, large, largest, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you got to really build that talent. If you have the capability to really scale and build the talent in such testing times, no matter what peripheral services you want to offer, whether you want to offer it in the form of managed capacity, managed services, outcome-based projects, turnkey projects, it doesn't really matter. Trust me, today when I look at all the buying behaviors, any large organization, any system integrators, they are all talking only about the talent. So if you have the ability to really source and get the right talent on the table, no matter how small you are, including the fact that you may be a startup, you are going to really control the terms and conditions of it. They are not going to judge you, gauge you by your size, but they are sheerly going to judge you and assess you and give you the project based on the talent that you can provide, the quality talent, the specialized workforce that you can provide. So I think I want to tell this, that it's a level playing field for all. The one who's able to really identify and source the right talent will be the key.
Thank you. Vijay, your thoughts, please.
I just think that it's amazing how to see how companies will partner with you to get this executed. If you know what you're selling and you're aware of how this product works, so the fact that you're asking this question knows that there is an opportunity with you, I think is half the problem solved. In hire, train and deploy, managed programs, MSPs, you'll be amazed at how the clients itself partner with you in the journey of making it successful. I think so, irrespective of the size that you are, I think it's the confidence that you can bring to the table, like Kapil said, what you can do for them and solve their problem. I think the rest of them, the customer will take you through.
All right, thank you. So in essence of time, we will not take more questions, but the questions are open. We love to answer those questions. Please send it to us. Please reach out to Suchita, reach out to me, reach out to all the speakers, because it is important that we understand these models. We as industry, we as staffing industry, start working on these models so that we can create more value and eventually all of us can grow together. So thank you very much. And like I promised last time, we came up with this interesting topic of various models. We are going to be back. We just need, we have a good, I saw at one time we had 150 participants, which is very encouraging. We want our members to come forward. We can come back next month or maybe early August with another interesting topic, which is a burning issue today for the industry. One of the two we can pick, and we are going to reach out to you. One of the two we can pick. One is, how good or how lucrative is the future for a technical recruiter in a staffing industry. And second one, or we can pick, what do we do with this massive problem of candidate backouts today? We can pick one of the two, and that time we'll have different speakers who probably have solved or who are battling out there to really solve these kind of problems. But let us know what kind of session you want. And, I promise you, I'll be back again. So ISF loves and gets very encouraged with your participation. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Kapil, Vijay, and Rohit for coming and spending this time, sharing your knowledge, probably sharing some sort of your trade secrets as well, what you do in your companies. And thank you very much, Suchita, for organizing this, coordinating this. And Abhishek, thank you for all your help at the back end. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend.
And we look forward to seeing all of you again very soon. Take care and happy weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.